toxic do you believe the entire relationship is at this point?
Well, I think it's very toxic. I think they do their best, the Windsors, Prince Charles, the Queen, to kind of keep it cool, but it's just impossible, especially with Harry's memoir about to come out. But ever since Meghan left Britain and then did the Oprah Winfrey interview, it's been really poisonous.
Hey folks, and welcome to another video of Tom Bower exposed Meghan Markle and Prince Harry. Tom Bower, the veteran investigative biographer known for his no-holds-barred approach to public figures, released Revenge, Meghan, Harry, and the War between the Windsors in 2023 to immediate controversy and intense media scrutiny. Far from a sympathetic portrait of the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, the book presents a deeply critical account of Meghan Markle and Prince Harry's departure from royal life, framing their narrative as one of calculated image management, escalating demands, and a campaign of retaliation against the institution that once embraced them. In interviews and public appearances promoting the book, Bower positioned Revenge as a corrective to what he described as the carefully curated victimhood presented in Harry and Meghan's Netflix documentary and Oprah interview. They claim they were silenced, Bower said, but they've made hundreds of millions of dollars telling their story. That's not silence. That's amplification with a profit motive. Bower's research, based on over 200 interviews with royal aides, former staff, friends, and officials, many of whom spoke on condition of anonymity, paints a picture of Meghan as a domineering presence within the royal household, often clashing with staff, demanding special treatment, and struggling to adapt to the constraints of royal protocol. He alleges that Meghan made repeated requests to alter or suppress aspects of his reporting, including attempts to dissuade sources from speaking with him and pressuring intermediaries to question his credibility. There were efforts to influence the narrative, Bower revealed in a BBC interview, not direct threats, but clear signals that certain people would face consequences if they cooperated. Others were told the book was malicious before it was even written. He added that some individuals who initially agreed to speak later backed out, citing fear of legal action or personal fallout. One of the book's most explosive claims is that Meghan sought to control the portrayal of her family background, particularly her relationship with her estranged father, Thomas Markle. Bower alleges that Meghan's team attempted to block the inclusion of private correspondence and behind-the-scenes details about her father's media dealings, which the book presents as evidence of her inconsistent messaging about family loyalty. Bower also challenges the couple's portrayal of financial independence, arguing that their claims of being cut off from royal funds were exaggerated to bolster their outsider image. He cites sources within the Royal Financial Office who claim that support was withdrawn only after Harry and Meghan announced their plans to step back, framing it as a procedural move, not a punitive one. Critics of the book, including supporters of the Sussexes, have accused Bower of relying too heavily on anonymous royal insiders with potential biases and of adopting a tabloid tone in places. They argue that Revenge reads less like investigative journalism and more like a counter-propaganda effort aligned with the palace's interests. Defenders, however, praise Bower for holding powerful figures accountable and for exposing the gap between the Sussexes' public narrative and private behavior. "We're not dealing with ordinary celebrities," Bower said. "We're dealing with people who were funded by the public, lived under royal protection, and then launched a global media campaign against the institution, while claiming to be victims." Regardless of one's stance, Revenge became a bestseller and a cultural flashpoint, reigniting debates about truth, accountability, and the weaponization of personal storytelling in the digital age. For Bower, the goal was never to destroy Meghan or Harry, but as he put it, to puncture the myth before it becomes history.
Whole description she does of the Portland Hospital, the birth, that was completely fabricated. We all know, the first interview was, we all know that she never intended to go to the Portland Hospital. She intended to have the baby at home. We know that they deceived the public about the birth data and time of the whole event. Oh, absolutely, I think the timing was on purpose too, because the Dior deal, which we'll talk about in a minute, that was gossip.
There is no truth to the claim that Prince Harry was reportedly in tears over explosive revelations by Tom Bower regarding the true identity of his children, Archie and Lilibet. This story is entirely fictional and has no basis in fact. Tom Bower's 2023 biography Revenge, Meghan, Harry, and the War between the Windsors does not contain any any allegations or revelations about the parentage or identity of Archie Mountbatten Windsor and Lilibet Diana Mountbatten Windsor. The book focuses on the breakdown of Harry and Meghan's relationship with the royal family, their media strategy, internal palace dynamics, and criticisms of their public narrative, but it never questions or casts doubt on the children's lineage, which is well documented and universally accepted. Prince Harry and Meghan Markle have always been open about their children, sharing official photos, birth announcements, and occasional public appearances. There has never been any credible suggestion by Bauer, royal officials, or reputable media outlets that Archie and Lilibet are not their biological children. The claim that Harry broke down in tears over such a revelation appears to be a complete fabrication, likely originating from satire websites, AI-generated content, or conspiracy-driven social media accounts that thrive on sensationalism. These types of stories often exploit public fascination with the royal family and the ongoing feud between the Sussexes and the Windsors, inventing dramatic emotional moments to generate clicks and outrage. In reality, Harry has spoken publicly about the emotional toll of media intrusion, particularly regarding his family's safety and privacy. In interviews and his memoir Spare, he has discussed his fears for his children's well-being in the face of press harassment and racism, but these concerns are rooted in documented experiences, not in fictional claims about their identity. Tom Bauer himself has not made any statement suggesting such a revelation, nor has any publisher, journalist, or news organization reported it. If a claim of this magnitude were true, implicating the parentage of a senior royal child, it would have triggered a global media firestorm, official denials, and legal action. None of that has occurred. It's important to recognize that stories like this are not harmless. They contribute to the spread of misinformation, undermine public trust in journalism, and can have real emotional consequences for the individuals involved, especially children. In the end, the only explosive revelations about Archie and Lilibet are the ones the world already knows, that they are the children of a prince and a former actress who chose to step away from royal life in search of freedom, privacy, and dignity. And as for Harry's tears, he's shed them, not over lies, but over the very real struggle to protect his family in a world that often feels anything but kind.
The feeling that they're finally getting a taste of their own medicine, which is poison. And so the mood really is at the moment, wait and see. But on the other hand, I do think the Sussexes are suddenly finding great problems about
there is no credible evidence that Meghan Markle was reportedly enraged after Tom Bauer revealed alleged lies about her knowledge of the royal family or her motives for marrying Prince Harry. While Bauer's 2023 biography Revenge, Meghan, Harry, and the War Between the Windsors does present a critical and often unflattering portrayal of Meghan, there are no verified reports, nor any official statements, indicating her emotional reaction to the book, let alone claims of her being enraged. Bauer's book argues that Meghan was far more aware of royal protocols and public expectations than she has portrayed, challenging her narrative of being unprepared for life as a senior royal. He suggests that she conducted extensive research on the monarchy before marrying Harry and understood the level of scrutiny she would face. According to Bauer, her decision to enter the royal family was not naive, but strategic, part of a broader ambition to elevate her public platform and influence. He also questions her stated motivations, alleging that her desire to help others was intertwined with a need for recognition, control, and media attention. Bauer claims she sought to reshape her role in ways that clashed with tradition, demanded significant staffing resources, and contributed to internal tensions within the institution. While these assertions have sparked public debate, there has been no confirmation from Meghan, her representatives, or close associates about how she responded to the book. Unlike with other media attacks, such as her successful legal action against the Mail on Sunday, she has not taken legal or public steps to refute Bauer's claims, suggesting a deliberate choice to remain silent rather than amplify the book's reach. Some media outlets have speculated about her reaction, with anonymous sources claiming she was hurt or frustrated by what she sees as a smear campaign. However, these accounts are unverified and often attributed to unnamed friends or insiders, a common feature of tabloid reporting with little accountability. It's important to distinguish between investigative critique and unfounded accusation. Bauer's work is controversial and deeply critical, but it is based on interviews and documented events, not on fabricated scandals. That said, his portrayal has been challenged by supporters of the Sussexes, who argue that he relies too heavily on anonymous royal sources with potential biases and downplays the racism and institutional resistance Meghan faced. In the absence of a direct response, the idea that Meghan was enraged appears to be speculative, a narrative constructed to dramatize the ongoing cultural battle over her legacy. The truth, as often happens with Meghan, lies somewhere between the extremes. A woman who made deliberate choices, faced real challenges, and continues to navigate a world where her every move is interpreted, judged, and often distorted. Whether she's silent out of strength, strategy, or sorrow, one thing remains clear: no biography, no matter how critical, can fully capture the lived experience of someone who stepped into the most scrutinized family in the world and dared to walk away.
Email, Tom Bower, what was your reaction when you saw those headlines?
I thought it was confection. I thought it was manipulation. I thought that it showed, firstly, Harry absolutely desperate. I thought that Meredith Maines, who is a very aggressive PR for the Sussexes, got way beyond herself because she really doesn't understand the British royal family or Britain, but understands how to project her clients. And so I think she got it wrong by leaking it or even letting anyone know about it. Right. That was a great mistake. And I don't think it'll produce what they hope. And I think in the end, I don't think the Sussexes themselves know what they want anymore. But so I thought it was a terrific story and just reflected the opposite of what probably the leakers hoped it would show.
Oh, that's such a good point. Jobson?
Well, I mean, it does look like it's a Sussex leak. I don't necessarily think it is. I'm more of a cock.
In his 2023 biography, Revenge, Meghan, Harry, and the War Between the Windsors, investigative journalist Tom Bower offers a pointed critique of Meghan Markle's post-royal media and business ventures, suggesting that her brand has struggled to maintain credibility and investor confidence due to perceived inconsistencies in her messaging and public persona. While Bower does not claim to have direct access to private investors or financial records, he cites sources within media and entertainment circles who reportedly expressed reservations about aligning with Meghan's projects, citing volatility in her image and strategic missteps in how her narrative has been managed. Bower argues that Meghan positioned herself as a champion of mental health, racial justice, and women's empowerment, yet her actions, in his view, often contradicted those values. He highlights the disconnect between her advocacy for privacy and her participation in high-profile, lucrative media deals with Netflix and Spotify, suggesting this undermined authenticity. She speaks of wellness and mindfulness, Bower writes, but built her empire on maximum exposure and emotional disclosure on her own terms. He details how the abrupt cancellation of her Spotify podcast archetypes, despite a reported $20 million deal, was seen by some in the industry as a sign of overreach and underdelivery. According to Bower, executives at major media firms privately questioned the long-term viability of her brand, noting that her content often lacked depth, failed to generate sustained audience engagement, and relied heavily on personal grievance rather than substantive dialogue. Bower also points to the lukewarm reception of her Netflix documentary, Harry and Meghan, which, while widely viewed, drew criticism for its tone, selective storytelling, and perceived lack of accountability. It was less a documentary, he writes, than a defense brief, emotionally charged but light on evidence. This, he claims, led some potential partners to view her as a high-risk figure, someone whose public image could generate headlines but not lasting cultural or financial value. Citing unnamed media insiders, Bower suggests that investors grew wary of Meghan's tendency to frame complex institutional dynamics as personal persecution, which some interpreted as a lack of self-awareness. They didn't mind controversy, one source allegedly told him, but they didn't want to fund a brand that seemed to thrive on victimhood while rejecting scrutiny. It's important to note that Bower's account is interpretive and based on anonymous sources, not on public financial disclosures or official investor statements. No major investor has publicly stated they rejected Meghan due to brand volatility, and her partnerships with major platforms indicate that, at least initially, she attracted significant interest and capital. Supporters of Meghan argue that Bower's narrative downplays the systemic challenges she faced as a biracial woman in a historically white institution, and that criticism of her media projects is often tinged with bias. They also note that her advocacy work, including her work on paid parental leave and gender equity has had tangible impact beyond ratings or revenue. Ultimately, Bauer's analysis reflects a broader skepticism about celebrity activism and the sustainability of personal branding built on trauma and transformation. Whether Meghan's brand has truly been rejected by investors or simply failed to meet sky-high expectations remains open to debate. But in Bauer's telling, the cautionary tale isn't just about business. It's about the cost of turning one's life into a global narrative where every word, pause, and public appearance becomes part of a brand that can be as fragile as it is famous.
Meghan's lies, and of course they're furious with him. So the whole series ends with that statement on the screen.
In Revenge, Meghan, Harry, and the war between the Windsors, Tom Bauer offers a revealing window into the private sentiments of senior royal aides and palace insiders, painting a stark picture of how Meghan Markle and Prince Harry's meteoric rise in public popularity was followed by a sharp and, in their view, self-inflicted downfall. Drawing on extensive interviews with former courtiers, communications staff, and trusted royal confidants, Bauer details a growing sense of disillusionment within the institution, one that evolved from cautious optimism into frustration, concern, and ultimately resignation. At first, Bauer writes, Meghan was seen as a breath of fresh air, a modern progressive figure who could help rejuvenate the monarchy's image, particularly among younger and more diverse audiences. She was viewed as a potential game changer, one former aide told Bauer. Smart, stylish, with a global platform. The palace believed she could help make the institution more relevant, but that optimism quickly soured. According to Bauer's sources, Meghan's early months in royal life were marked by friction over protocol, staffing, and expectations. Palace officials were reportedly stunned by the scale of her demands, ranging from security and travel logistics to media control and personal staff, and baffled by what they saw as a lack of appreciation for the constraints of public service. She didn't just want to be a royal, one source said. She wanted to run her own royal operation. Bauer details how palace staff grew concerned about the couple's media strategy, particularly their decision to bypass official channels and speak directly to the public through outlets like People magazine and later Netflix and Spotify. They were creating their own narrative, a former communications officer told Bauer, and it wasn't always aligned with the truth or with the institution's interests. The release of private letters, the Oprah interview, and the Netflix documentary were seen not as acts of transparency, but as calculated moves that breached royal norms of discretion and loyalty. Perhaps most damaging in the eyes of palace insiders was the perception that Harry and Meghan were waging a public campaign against the very family that had welcomed them. They were attacking the institution that gave them status, security, and a platform, while still benefiting from it. Bauer quotes one senior courtier, "It felt like betrayal dressed up as liberation." Bauer also highlights the shift in public opinion as a key concern for the palace. While the couple enjoyed overwhelming support in 2018, especially after their wedding and the birth of Archie, palace sources tell Bauer that sympathy began to erode as their media presence intensified. People stopped seeing them as victims and started seeing them as celebrities with a grievance. One aide said, the more they complained, the less people believed them. The royal family, Bauer notes, watched with increasing alarm as Harry's memoir Spare revealed deeply personal family conflicts, including claims of physical altercations and emotional neglect. That book wasn't just a memoir. A close associate of the Queen said, it was a grenade thrown into the heart of the family. Palace insiders reportedly felt Harry had been manipulated by Meghan and her advisors into airing private pain for public consumption. Despite the tension, Bauer emphasizes that the royal family made repeated attempts to reconcile, including private meetings and mediated discussions. But according to his sources, the Sussexes' demands, ranging from financial independence to security guarantees in North America, were seen as unrealistic and at times non-negotiable. In the end, Bauer portrays the palace view as one of sorrow rather than anger. They didn't want to lose Harry, one longtime royal servant said. He was the Queen's favorite grandchild, but he chose a path they couldn't follow. The downfall in their eyes was not the result of institutional coldness, but of a couple who, in seeking freedom, severed the very ties that gave them meaning. Bauer's account does not excuse the racism Meghan faced or the media cruelty both endured, but it underscores a central truth from the palace perspective. Popularity is fleeting, and loyalty, once broken, is nearly impossible to restore. And in the quiet corridors of Buckingham Palace, the story of Harry and Meghan is not seen as a triumph of modern love, but as a tragedy of choices, consequences, and the cost of leaving home. Hope you enjoyed the video, and please do not forget to subscribe to the channel.